Next question. I'm running 5 times a week, lifting 6 times a week, chest, triceps, back, biceps, legs, and shoulders, repeat. What are your thoughts? Yeah, so I am not a huge fan of, first of all, I'm not a huge fan for most people of lifting 6 times per week, even if your only goals are hypertrophy. Strength, absolutely not. You need more recovery time for strength, and that is not a good split to build like pure strength, like powerlifting strength, low rep range, all that kind of stuff. Hypertrophy, a lot of people will tout a 6 days per week split. And while it can absolutely work for most people, it is too much. You are going to get better results on 5 days, some people even 4 days, some people even 3 days, primarily for sustainability purposes. But even if you can sustain that for a long period of time, it's still likely going to be suboptimal because you could, by reducing a day of training, you are getting more recovery on another day off from the gym. And you don't grow from training more, you grow from recovering from your training. So recovery is super important. The split that he mentioned, he's basically training a chest and tricep, so a push day, a pull day, and a legs and shoulders day. I don't like that split either, especially when it's done in that order, and especially when it's done 6 days per week. The main reasons why: when you hit your first leg day, your legs and shoulders day, you're already going to be a little bit fatigued from those prior 2 sessions. Even though you're not using your legs for your upper body pull or your upper body push, that still builds systemic fatigue. And the legs, if you train them properly, are the most fatiguing muscle group in the body to train. The legs take up a good portion of your body, and they require a lot of focus and attention, and also just they're fatiguing, systemically fatiguing. So when you're training that after 3 days, yeah, you could do it absolutely fine. But since you're repeating it, you're doing another push day, another pull day, and then you're getting to legs again on day 6. You've just trained 5 straight days without a day off. And then you're hitting legs on that 6th day, as well as shoulders. Shoulders are a little bit less fatiguing to train, but done in combination with legs, that's still a fatiguing day. You are not going to be able to put a lot of quality effort into that session. So if you do want to lift 6 days per week, I would start with a lower body day. And I still would not recommend 6 days per week. You want to usually, in most cases, not always, but in most cases, taking a day off prior to and or after a leg day, especially if you're strong and especially if you have a lot of muscle mass and well-developed legs, is usually a good idea. It's just so fatiguing. Like if you hit a good hard leg day and then you try to hit a push day the next day, as opposed to hitting a leg day, taking a day off, then hitting that push day is usually going to go better. It really does depend on lots of other things, but that's just kind of my insight on that split, as well as doing it 6 days per week. Add running 5 times per week into that mix, and that's a recipe for just excessive training and excessive fatigue, and probably way less progress than you could otherwise be making if you cut that down to like 4 days per week of lifting, or even 3 days per week of lifting. And running 5 times a week, not a huge deal. That's fine if you work up to it and you are trying to get better at running. That's fine. I made a post yesterday about, you guys can check this out. I made a post about how to maintain muscle or gain muscle while you're running, and why it's a myth that running kills gains. So check that out for sure. I have some splits that usually work pretty well recommended in there. There are other splits that work well too, but in almost no cases is 6 days per week of lifting and 5+ days per week of running a very sound way to train. It's just eventually you're going to either burn out or injure yourself or just overtrain, or you're just maybe not going to do any of those things, but you are also not going to improve as well as you could in the gym, as well as running, just because you're going to be overly fatigued. You're going to struggle with recovery. Even if you're super duper dialed in with your nutrition and sleep and stress management, it's still usually a little bit too much. So recommend cutting it back a little bit, at least on the lifting. And I would be very surprised if you don't start seeing better results, and probably just as importantly, feeling better throughout the day and feeling less fatigued when you're not training.